Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Beatriz Mourad, and today I'm joined by Sarah Dolman.
Hello.
Delaney Stovall.
Hey, y'all.
And April Collins.
Hi there.
Today we will be discussing the premiere of Disney Channel's highly anticipated new animated show, The Owl House. Its first episode, The Lying Witch and a Warden, can be found on Disney Channel's official YouTube page. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it and then come back. We will be talking about it in full. So consider this your spoiler warning. You can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. All right, so tell me, what are your general thoughts on this premiere? Like, how does it hold up against other premieres? Like, anything that stood out to you in particular? April, let's start with you.
So, as you said, this was like a highly anticipated show. So there was kind of a lot on the line, I feel like. But it did not disappoint, which I was extremely happy and thankful for, because there's nothing more like upsetting than whenever you're like super hyped for a show and then it's just awful. So I thought everything just looked like the animation was so smooth and it looked really good. You could tell like that a lot of the team from Star versus the Forces of Evil because I had moved over to this show, because there were just like little things that seemed very like familiar. And so I felt very at home watching it. And I just loved like the whole, I just really enjoyed this first episode. Like it was a very solid like first episode. So.
Gotcha. Delaney, how about you?
So the rule of pilots is that pilots suck. They're not good. And honestly, this episode is incredible. Not just as a pilot, but it's just an incredible episode. I really, really enjoyed this episode. Like, I mean, every part of it. And the animation, it's very crisp and it's like beautiful to watch. I'm really excited to have a Latinx main character. And, you know, Marco is Latinx, but I don't know, like, he's not like the main character. And I don't know, like, I'm just excited. I'm always excited just to have more. And I do think they played it up a lot with Marco, but they played it up more in a, I'm not going to say joking way, but like, let's say it was more about not necessarily culturally, but more like what he ate. Like, it was much more subtle.
I've only seen one episode of Star, and you're really not selling me on this show based on that description.
Like, well, I mean, the thing is, like, it's not about, like, honestly, they do a lot more for Luce's, like, her interaction with her mom, and I don't know, there just seems like a little bit more going on here. And it also felt very Spider-Verse.
Thank you.
Granted,
okay, I'm
going to
have a huge thing about this.
Yeah, it's very Spider-Verse. And all of this was it's beautiful. All of the characters are great. I will literally die for King. I will die for him. He is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. But overall, I mean, this premiere was just fantastic. And like what April was saying, that this was a highly anticipated show. I was really excited about it. And I mean, I'm just blown away. And I am so, so excited to see more episodes. And I mean, as soon as I watched it, I sent it to my fiance. And she was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. So like, we're really, really excited. Like, this is just, I think this is an incredible step forward for this show.
Yeah. All right. Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I have to agree. I really loved it. I thought it was just this really wonderful blend of sweet and funny and heartwarming and also like achingly powerful and real. Like I have never seen a pilot and just felt so immediately connected to it. Like what this episode was about and what it seems like the show is going to be about is something that so many people can relate to, like not feeling like you can conform to society's standards and wanting to find your people that you could be yourself with. And it was just so easy to connect to. And yeah, I loved it from start to finish and I'm excited to keep watching.
Well, let me just tell the listeners now that we all loved it. And there's not going to be an unbiased kind of balance. This is a great show. And
no hate.
I mean, any show that has the line, and I practice the ancient art of fan fiction, is going to be God tier show for me. Because that is
really?
I mean, come on. And here's the thing. I had no idea what the show was about. Like, I say it's highly anticipated because I know that a lot of people had been talking about it. I had only seen one image of what I thought was this, like, older vampire, and I was like, who is this? I need to marry her now.
I also thought she was a vampire.
And I was just like,
too.
I mean, honestly, and that's all I knew going in. And then I had no idea who the main character was. I had no idea. And then it opens with this girl, and I was like, where were you when I was 14? And I, like, got very emotional when watching it all progress in a very Spider-Verse-esque way, because I just was not expecting Latinx representation, and then there it was for me. And this show, like, just talking about right now is getting me shaky. Like, oh my God, like, In particular for me, what really stood out beyond just that was also, like, the direction, the storyboarding. I know that Dana Terrace, I believe is her name, she was like a storyboarder on Gravity Falls. I believe it's Gravity Falls that she used to be the storyboard artist for. So it just kind of really showed me, like, this person who's she didn't direct this episode, but she had a hand in the storyboarding for the episode. I'm like, this person has a vision and she knows how to compose shots, and every single shot in this episode was just so well placed, and everything was so smooth, and just the little things of animation, just like the small movement of the eyes, everything, just like
this isn't a show that, like, you know, you have an idea and you make a show. This is like, really, this was made to be watched, if that like, this was made to be animated. Yeah. This was made to, like, everything about it is about, like, the crafting of, like, the episode itself.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just this like, I mean, I was just, it's rare to see a show from the very pilot just go, like, full steam ahead and working, like, with all cylinders firing. But that's what I felt just from this premiere.
And they didn't hold anything back.
Yeah. And I was just like, and I got it. From the pilot, I understood what they were going for. I got the essence of the show. And a lot of times, sometimes for shows, live action or animated, it doesn't matter. Especially, like, they'll take a season or they'll take a couple episodes to really, like, plant their feet and give you, like, an idea of what they're trying to be. And with this one, it was just already, like, just with these, 22 minutes, they were able to, like, just nail it. And, it was so good. Give me your, like, impressions of Luce. Give me about this protagonist. Like, what are your thoughts, Sarah?
Yeah, she's such a compelling character right away, because she's a weirdo and she just wants to be herself, and she doesn't want to be limited by what, like, the school needs her to be, what the real world can be. And then, like, throughout the episode, she enters into this magic world, and she's just always herself, and she doesn't want to be limited there either, because, you know, by the end of the episode, she wants to be the first human witch, and, like, she just sort of sets her sights so high and doesn't want to be shut down, and I love that.
Yes. April, what about you?
So I want to be her when I grow up, because, like, I think it's just incredible to have a character who, like, is so much herself and so, like, comfortable being herself, and, like, has accepted it. Like, what she, like, said something about, like, editing anime to, like, music or whatever, and I was like, this is my girl right here, because I would do stuff like that, and I was like, wow, I'm so weird. But, like I just wish that, like, at her age, I could have been, like, as confident in myself. And so because of that, like, I just love seeing a character, especially as a protagonist and as a female, who is like, who like knows what she wants to be, who she is, accepts it, goes from there, like, knows what she wants, you know, is doing what she, you know, she's, like, taking ownership of, like, herself, and, like, I thought it was great how she was just like, I'm staying here. Like, why would I go home and go to summer camp where they're just going to try and change me? Like, that is just, it's so empowering. And I love empowering like female characters in shows, especially like in like kids shows. I think it's great. Like, I love that. Like, she is like she has, what is it? I guess like she's Latin to some extent. And I think that's great. Like, this is wonderful. And I immediately was like, I need to cut my hair, look like her. Like, I gotta find this energy somewhere.
Yeah, I
think
think
the cat hoodie.
Exactly, the cat hoodie.
Yeah,
They have
the
to make that.
hoodie.
They have to start selling that. I mean, Disney, come on, you're like a merch machine. You gotta sell that.
Yeah, that's the cat hoodie.
But
you can give us the cat hoodie we all deserve.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's very rare to find like a character. I don't know. I haven't seen often in any context, live or animated, a character that's allowed to be weird and earnest.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like someone who's like embraces her weirdness. A lot of times it's like, oh, like that the weird girl's like a side character, and that's like her shtick is that she's just weird. When it's like, no, this isn't something to make fun of. So I very much agree with your take. Delaney, what about you? What about your thoughts on Luce?
Well, I kind of want to expound upon this whole like idea of weirdness, and like obviously I'm like definitely about like what this show's talking about, but I think what makes it so effective is that these people aren't weird.
Yeah.
Like that's what, because my thing is like Jana in Star Wars vs. Evil is weird. Like, I love her. She's weird. Like, she's like actually weird. These characters aren't weird. And that's what's important because like, these are things people think are weird. Like, she makes anime videos. That's awesome. Also, like, and I don't mean this just because, we podcast about cartoons. Obviously, we like AMVs. But what I mean is, oh my God.
Like, a lot of people do it. It's not a weird thing.
Yeah,
or like, she talks about fan fiction. Like, all of this. Like, I think that's what's so important is that this stuff, because there is stuff that is legitimately weird and not okay, but this stuff isn't weird. And I think that's really what's so important about this is this, like, people think you're weird because you like obscure things or because you like something people think is embarrassing. And none of that is in this episode. Like, we have a girl who writes fan fiction. I'm like, good for you. And then we have like a conspiracy theorist, but like none of it is like negative. And we even have a witch and this amazing skull cat, and I love him so much. And they're just who they are, and it's not weird in a harmful or like weird for the sake of being weird. Like, these are like legitimate characters with legitimate interests. And that's what's I also think is really compelling about Luce is like, she's not weird. Like, she's creative and expressive. And like, you feel bad for her in the principal's office. I was like, this sounds like a great book report. Like, I wish I could have used that report. And like, she had snakes. Like, she's creative. Like, and it's not really, she's not doing anything bad. It's just, she's a kid and she didn't understand the consequences of unleashing snakes in her classroom. And so I think that's really what's so compelling about all of this is like, we're not just doing the weird for the sake of being weird. Like, this is a legitimate commentary. Also, I like that they kind of did this right at the beginning, and I don't think necessarily this is going to be what the show's about, but this is a really great step forward, I think, for opening the show and Luce's character. Like, this is like her beginning. Like, this is her story.
And I think it's really interesting, kind of like, in terms of commentary on what it is defined as weird. A lot of these things you mentioned, like anime music videos, fan fiction, a lot of these things tend to be things that young teenage girls like with a passion. And there is no demographic that's more targeted by society than a young teenage girl. Like, you see constantly people making fun of.
Weird. It's not cool.
Yeah, like that's why people made fun of Twilight. That's why people make when the Beatles first came and they were this craze, people made fun of that. Like that, like the very concept of weird is being turned on its head here, because the very concept is something that should be turned on its head, because often the case is just people really liking something a lot. And for some reason, that's seen as strange, having a passion. And that's what this show is showing. It's like, it's not strange. And so you're on it with that comment. For me, I am gonna focus on like because you all said all these other stuff, so I am gonna focus on the Latinx stuff because they're Spanish in this episode. They're Spanish, and you need to understand, like so often with Latinx characters, they're just there as the Latina or the Latino. They're never there as the focus, and it's never just like a part of them. Like it's like that is their characteristic. It's like it's this superficial thing, and that didn't happen. And I'm not used to seeing this. Like, it happened with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where I literally was, like, watching, expecting them to either completely ignore it or to, like, and not mention it or to make it this, like, weird, like, wink at the audience. And it's like, no, it was this beautiful, organic thing. And the fact that, like, she is, like, when she sees something adorable, the initial thing that comes out of her is Spanish, which is something that I do. Like, it's like this it's like a hard, for people who aren't like bilingual and don't have like a native tongue that is different from English. Like, this is like, it's hard to explain, but like the fact that it's like this guttural, instinctual use of the language, and it's just this beautiful thing. And I didn't know that she was Latina, and I blame everyone for not telling me and not preparing me for this. Like, you needed to tell me.
Well, I think, too, this whole, like, this isn't something you normally see in animation in general. Like, I don't really think, it's hard for me to even remember any single instance where they speak Spanish in Star versus Forces of Evil beyond, like, his dad saying something, like, funny. Yeah. And this is, like, also, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure Marco can speak Spanish.
Which is fine, because there's so many Latinos. Like, that's its own thing. Like, that's a whole, like, yeah.
But, like, that felt more like lip service representation as opposed to this, which is, like, this is an innate part. Like, this is, like, part of her character in a way that, like, is meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and it's just, it's like, so, what I, like, and it's just, it's, like, I just was just blown away by just how it's, like, because it's not a big deal, and I know that I shouldn't be making a big deal, but like the fact that I'm so emotional about this, and it
is a big deal.
I think it's a big deal.
I know,
I think it's a big deal too.
But it's just like it's something that I only realize it is like once I see it. That's like, right. Oh, I don't see this. Right. So like, and it's just, I don't know, it's just completely beautiful, and I cannot wait to see this like crazy adventure that she's about to go on. And where were you when I was 14? Where were you?
You know, this stuff is extremely meaningful, and especially, like, I'm going to keep talking about Star versus the Force of Evil, because, like, this is literally, like, the next, like, this is, to me, this is the new Star, and honestly, I already think it's going to be better than Star, and this, like, Star is about Star, and Marco is a very important character, but, like, the show's about Star, and here we have, like, she's the main character. And I'm really excited about, like, Spanglish. Like, we don't get that in animation. We don't get that on TV in a way that isn't, like, annoying or, like, you have to turn to Telemundo to see things in Spanish. So, like, this is really exciting stuff. And I'm really excited that it's a Latinx character. Like, it's and it's just, I'm so tired of just seeing the same, like, white people on TV all the time. Like, it's annoying. And this is, like, and I think the part of it is that they have done it so well. It's so well executed. Like, you know, like, her mom talks to her in Spanish, and they're adorable. Her mom is adorable.
Yeah, she is. And like I think the only, and this is a show where we see witches, we see griffins, we see all these things. The one unrealistic thing I had about the show was, okay, her mom would have texted her like 3 hours ago, being like, hey, where are you? Hey, give me a heads up.
Right.
Where are you? You needed to text me like 5 hours ago. So that's the one thing. But like, it's just, she's like luz means that's like light in Spanish, so she's very much like a light for me, because I was very, like, a lot of shows were ending, right? So I was like, oh gosh, like, what's gonna fill this animation hole for me? And there she is. She just dropped out from somewhere, and I'm just so happy. But let's talk about the other main character of, well, I don't know, is Ida a side character? Is she another main character? Like, she was the only thing I knew coming into this show. Give me your thoughts on this beautiful, beautiful owl lady, Sarah.
I'm not really sure yet how I feel about her. She seems really interesting and kind of mysterious, but also like very genuine. And so it's kind of like who is this lady and what is her agenda? Does she even have an agenda? Like, and it's like at the beginning, can we really trust her? And then it's like, oh, she just wants to help her little pet king, and they're so cute, and her just wanting to help him is just so sweet. And I'm just curious to learn more about her.
Yeah. What about you, April?
Yeah, she's very like captivating, so which makes sense also because she's a salesperson, so at least like she is whenever we first meet her. I really do I want to know more about her. I have a feeling she's going to be kind of like a main character, and again, we're bringing up Star versus the Forces of Evil because it just has so much of that same like energy. But I feel like she's going to be kind of like how Marco was a main character, quote unquote, if that makes sense. So, which is exciting because, we'll get to learn more about her. And so I'm very eager to do that. I love that she's just like super wanted by everyone. Like, my favorite thing is whenever the warden was just like, these are for you. Like, I finally got you. Go on a date with me. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, and then there was part of me that was like, you should just go on that date, girl. Go get some food or something. But like, I love her. And I love that she kind of seems very like blunt almost too as a character. And that's also kind of refreshing because nothing drives me more crazy than characters who just like won't just say however it is that they're feeling, or like we have to like get through like 5 or 6 episodes and then we'll figure out like, oh, they're actually really fun or whatever. So I like that we're kind of getting her like in our face right away.
The episode is called Lying Witch and a Warden, but do you think do you trust her?
I mean, can we trust any character at this moment?
I trust Luce with my life.
I trust her, but like she seems like genuine enough. But I mean it wouldn't, like, there would be no, I guess, like drama if she didn't have any kind of, something to lie about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, it is kind of weird that she's like, oh yeah, like, you have to work for me, and then I'll teach you to be a witch. Like, it just seems like she's just trying to get some free labor. I mean, just hire an intern.
Gotcha. So this is going to be a commentary on internships and how they're basically free labor.
They are free labor.
They are. Delaney, what about you? What are your thoughts on Ida?
So I'm all in on Ida. I trust her. And I think that's part of why this is so good. So at first you're like, oh my God, she's scary because you're experiencing it as Luce is experiencing it. But really, like, Ida's just a weirdo too. Like, I think this might be Ida's thing, that she, like, everything's a business transaction, but it's not really, because she's really just a super sweet old lady. And I'm not that I really feel comfortable saying old lady. Like, I don't really think, like, she's really that old. Like, I don't know. Anyway, like, I love her and I think she's incredible. And I would trust, I don't know if I trust her with my life, just because I think, like, not that, like, she's sketchy, but I think that, like her body.
Say it. You could say she's sketchy. It's okay.
Her body parts come off, and I don't know if she understands that that's not a thing that my body would do. Like, I really am sold on her. Like, I think, like what April was saying, she's very genuine, and I think she's a sweetie. Like I will never, like, this is honestly the most impactful thing in this episode for me. And I was like talking to my fiance about it when Luce realizes that it's a Burger King crown. Yeah. And she's like, that's not real, is it? And she's like, no, but it's important to him, and what's important to him is important to me. And I was like, oh my God, this lady just loves her cat. Like, I'm super duper about this. And so I'm like all in on Ida.
Yeah. And I mean, you said you felt a little uncomfortable using the term old with Ida, but I do want to talk about how I don't think since The Legend of Korra, I don't think we've actually seen an older woman. I feel like, in animation at least, I feel like it's like women can only be like from the ages of like 5 to 30, and then they just drop off until they're 90.
It's true. I agree.
So like, and it's like, so I think that's one of the things that's so refreshing to see with Ida is like, you see someone who doesn't fall under those, like, doesn't fall under that age range. And she's just like, and she's still like this, like, single, capable, beautiful woman. And she doesn't.
Ida's hot.
She's so hot.
Very attractive.
Like, Ida's hot.
I don't understand. Like, I was
like, I'm gonna try and capture her and take her on a date.
basically.
Even in the episode, they like call her Foxy, and I was like, not that I'm comfortable saying that, but like, you know, it's true.
Like, honestly, I think that's one of the various things, like how there's like a subversion of what is weird, and how the show is defiant in saying that what young girls like is not weird. I think it's also defiant in showing us various different types of women. I think there were more women in this episode than men. Like, it's crazy to think about, and it's sad that we have to think about this, but we do, and it's like, and it's just so, it's such a, it's so refreshing to see, and it's one of those things where, like, at the if you're living in the moment of the show, you don't really think about it. But if you take a more macro look at the state of children's animation, of just in general in Hollywood, if you look at how women are represented,
it's all media.
There is this kind of drop off where suddenly a woman isn't allowed to be seen on screen because there's, for some reason, people think there's no value in that anymore, when there is. And Ida is like a great example of that.
And and it's not just a source of like knowledge or like, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's why I really think she's in action.
Yeah.
And she's brilliant. And like, I really think this is like, she's just a great character, and it makes it so much better that she's an older woman. Like she's very, like you were talking about, since The Legend of Korra, which even The Legend of Korra suffers from that, because we have Katara, who is like 1,000,000 years old, and then we have Toph, who is also 1,000,000 years old, and the only character really who doesn't fit that is Kaya, and Kaya is also hot, and you know, it's just, it's great. Like, this is, and especially, I think another important thing that we talk about is seeing Ida, and they talk, like, not only does the warden ask her out, she keeps talking about her ex-boyfriends.
Yeah.
Like, I hope we get to meet all of them.
Yes. Also, the King made a comment. I was like, does this happen every week? Is it just her ex-boyfriends after her? Like, I'm about this.
Because if every week we get to see a new ex-boyfriend, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm sold. Is that the formula for the show? I'm fine with it.
I'm fine.
I'm just waiting for the ex-girlfriend, just saying.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Here's my idea. I think the ex-girlfriends are actually, like, the ex-girlfriends are chill. They're just like, you know, they don't cause a problem, but the ex-boyfriends just can't let it go. That's
no, I think there's definitely, like, yes.
But yeah, I just think and I think she's an enigma. I think that she's just so charismatic, and it's like,
oh, absolutely.
They did a great job with the voice casting. I was just like, oh, this is amazing. Is she a vampire? They didn't say she's not. And she has a fang, and there are multiple people with fangs.
But she also has pointed ears.
Well, here's the thing. I think this might be one of those instances where, like, you can be a witch, but you're not, like, but a witch is kind of like its own thing.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I think we'll have to see, like, somebody else use magic to determine, because in a lot of mythology and stuff, like, a witch is a witch. Like, it's not that you're a person and you're a witch, if that makes sense. Like, so that just might be what a witch looks like. And it might have been why she's like, a human can't be a witch, because you're not a witch. So I'm curious to see if maybe that's what they're going for. I do really like her character design. I wouldn't be upset if she was a witch vampire. Honestly, she just got like 10 degrees hotter. But, like, I mean, you know, it's whatever.
I'm just saying because there was, like, the fan fiction girl also had fangs. So I was like, maybe they're all vampires. Or like certain, the ones with fangs are all vampires. Maybe. I don't know.
It's definitely unclear.
It's unclear. Maybe
and then we have, like, a
clarify
triangle person, so who knows?
Yeah, true.
Who
That's
knows?
true. Very true. Let's just briefly talk about King.
I love it. What do you mean briefly?
What else is there to say? Okay, fine. What are the chances that he's actually a demon king?
Absolutely none. He is just this cat. I'm trying to. So my other theory that I'm trying to figure out is if he's, like, literally a cat who just wears the skull, or if, like, he's just this cute little pet. I don't care either way.
So
he's
he
amazing.
You're saying he's Cubone?
Yeah, he's Cubone. Correct. King is Cubone, and I adore him. Also, it's really funny that he's literally just Bill Cipher. Like, That's his voice. It's amazing. And I think King
Alex
is
Hirsch.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's Alex Hirsch. Yeah.
Yeah.
King is so he's Alex Hirsch, and then he's using the Bill Cipher voice. It's amazing. And I adore King. So not that I haven't said that enough. And I really think he's a really interesting character. Like, I think, obviously he's the animal companion, but I think it's great that he can talk. Like, I think this is really going to lead to some fun dynamics. And obviously he's a bit, like, sidelined a little bit in this episode, so I'm curious to see what we're doing, like, more with him. But with Core, obviously we've made our little trio, and when he got in bed with Luce, I was, like, dying. It was so cute.
I literally screamed.
So cute. Like, he's like, oh, your sleeping cocoon looks really comfy. And I was like, oh my god. Also, can we give Luce a blanket? Like, why doesn't she have a blanket?
Maybe
What's
she
wrong with
didn't
you?
want a blanket.
Who doesn't want a blanket?
Look, sometimes animating getting her into the sleeping bag can be very tedious. So they're like, let's just have her lay down on it.
Like,
Needs a blanket.
she had such a great day, and she's so
She did.
exhausted that she just falls asleep right there on
Also,
her.
her jammies are adorable.
Oh.
Okay, also it's called the boiling aisle, so what if it's really hot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Speaking of the boiling aisle, what do you think of how what do you think of this dimension? Like, for instance, like, I really enjoyed how it's like, and it's weird to say this, but I love how it's like magic and like supernatural elements. They're not like romanticized. Like, it's not the prettiest thing. Like, you have like, it's at times it's like borderline gross and like realistic, but that's what makes it refreshing. Like, I'm just thinking back to all these other shows that are about like about witches and
And they have like there's flowers and rainbows everywhere.
Like magic is
Right,
like
or it's like
lasery.
Muni.
Well,
Exactly.
it's a bit like, I think it's a bit like How to Train Your Dragon.
I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon.
What? Okay. Anyway.
Expand on it.
This is very similar in that representation. Like, it's very, I'm not going to say darker, but it's more.
I mean, Ida gets decapitated. It's fair to say
It's
it's a little
true.
darker.
That's fair.
But
Continue.
I do like that too, that it's not as pretty. Like,
Yeah.
does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just not as pretty. And it's more realistic, I think, too, in that regard, because it's not so, like, it's fantasy, but it's not. And so you have like your supernatural like things, but then you like have like a realness to it. So we're not like glossing it over kind of thing, as we've kind of already seen in this show. So it just adds to the interesting factor, because I want to know, why is this place not beautiful? But I like it. I would call this home.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys think that the like for instance, like, is Boiling Isles the entire dimension, or is that just part of it?
I don't know. I think that's remained like, I mean, she did say something along the lines of like, what you have in your world is our world bleeding into yours. So I think this is just, I'm curious if this will be a travel log, or if it's just kind of like, well, that's where she lives. So maybe they'll make mention of other places.
Right.
Well, the way that she kind of talked about the Boiling Isles is that like maybe they sort of like exist side by side. You know what I mean? Like, it's all the Boiling Isles, just in the way that it's all like whatever they potentially call like Luce's home.
Oh,
you
right.
know,
So like each isle is like this isn't a region. This is like the entire planet or the entire world. Okay.
Yeah, kind of like how like there's Earth and then there's Mars. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Like two different planets almost.
Gotcha.
So, but I do like the whole like, oh yeah, like that's just our world bleeding into it, and she like lists off like vampires and like giraffes. So
Giraffes was good. That was a good joke.
that was a good one. She's like, they're so weird.
Again, with the weird thing, they're like actually pointing out, like, yeah, they have really long necks. It's strange. But what were you gonna say, Sarah?
Yeah, one thing that I've seen people bring up is that potentially the theory that Ida is the witch from Luce's book,
Ooh.
that has
she's
bled
what it's
into
based off of.
her dimension somehow. Somehow this book is about Ida, and that's sort of something that's bled in from their dimension to Luce's dimension.
Ooh.
I'm about it.
I am halfway. I don't know if I'm about it because it seems like that was just like a story, like a fantasy novel that she read.
Mhm.
So I'm just like, if it's like, I don't know. I'm like, if it's based off like I'm like, okay, so the writer must have seen her do something. Maybe, I don't know. I'm like, maybe. I wouldn't be mad at it. It very much, at least that sequence in the beginning of the episode, that is her book report, basically. Gave me a lot of like Little Witch Academia vibes. So
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like the outfit. So I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm into this. So, hey, maybe she is a real, maybe Azura, I believe is her name.
Mhm.
Maybe she is another character that exists in that world. Maybe it's
Yeah.
another witch.
Oh, and like Luce gets to meet her at some point.
Ooh, that would be
so
cool.
cute.
And then Ida's like, ugh.
Yeah, and then Luce realizes that Ida's like the legit witch. That would be really cool.
Oh, so like I really feel for Luce. Like all I read is sci-fi and fantasy, so this is like right up my alley.
Yeah. So let's talk about the episode itself briefly. What really like impacted me was, again, how it deals with a lot of these themes. Like it's a very light tone. Like the tone they strike with this episode is really interesting. Cause yes, it's like light, it's funny, but then you also like you also have this place called the Conformatorium. And to me, that was like, that reminded me, like, that's basically, it was described as a place that weirdos are sent because they don't fit in society.
It's an asylum.
It's an asylum. And then it's like, okay, well, like, for me, like, obviously for me, I was like, for me, what that brought forward was like, oh God, is this like conversion therapy? Like, they're sent there to like be like, quote, fixed?
Right,
So
well,
it's
that's what I thought, like, the reality check summer camp was basically her sending her away to conversion camp.
Yeah. So it's like these very, and it's a good that's a really great parallel of how like kind of things that are happening in real life are also like, in not real life, but in her world are also happening in the other dimension. Like it's a very interesting parallel between them. And it's a very heavy thing, and they don't go deep into it. They don't go like, oh, this is very, like, whatever. It's just painted in a negative light, which is enough. Like, another thing you see is, like, with the warden, like, I'm happy she didn't go on a date, and I don't want her to go on a date with this guy. Because this is a guy who doesn't know how to accept no, which we all know is a very big problem in society. And he literally, before he asks her out, he decapitates her. Like, he's a very violent person. So the fact that we also, once again, that's something that's portrayed in a negative light. It's like, again, it's not something that is overtly explained to you, but just by making them the villain and sticking to that is like tells you everything you need to know, and it strikes this very interesting balance. What did you guys think of like how this episode dealt with the tone and these themes?
Well, I think the really great part about it is it's not just like what they really do a good job of expressing is that this kind of, quote unquote therapy, this kind of like path to go, like they're all locked up and we know that he tortures one of them, that this is really more like, at the end when they break out, this, you don't actually convert people, you just make them feel bad about themselves. Like that's the end result, and they feel horrible about who they are, and they don't feel comfortable being who they are, and that doesn't solve anything. Like that's not that, like there's no purpose to it other than torturing this person. And so I think that's a really like it's they went like the right way with it.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately what it is. It's just torture, and it's not anything. And I think that's really what they do a great job with, and I really like appreciated that part. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I also liked that they made it a point to say like these people haven't done anything wrong. Like why are they locked up? And so I think that's like the most I think that's a really good message to put out there too. Like you haven't done anything wrong. There's no reason for you to be locked up. And also the fact that, like, everyone sort of gravitates towards quote-unquote weirdness. I mean, even the warden, though, yes, he has some boundary issues. Like, he makes, like, a really good representation of, like, just society as well, because we gravitate towards weird and unusual things, or what we would consider, just because we're intrigued by that. And so for him to, like, ask out Ida, like, is just sort of a really good, like, again, like, putting, like, a good representation of that, because, oh, like, you, like, think all of these things are weird, and you think she's weird, but yet you're asking her out on a date. So, like, what does that say about you, Warden? I also wonder, too, if, like, the Warden isn't, like, necessarily our main villain.
Oh, totally
Yeah, because, like, someone would have had to have, like, made or, like, written rules that define what is
also,
like,
it's normal. Ridiculous in this society where they do magic and there's vampires or whatever, that, like, oh, this is weird. Really? Right? This is weird? This is where you draw the line? Yeah. It's weird to write fan fiction, but, like, whatever you're doing is fine.
Exactly.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, curious to see who's, like, the actual, like, because it looked like when they gave that wide shot of Boiling Isles, it looked like there was, I don't know if it was a castle or a cathedral, like, I don't know what it was, but there was, like, a very big, important building right there. So I'm curious, like, Warden sounds impressive on the surface, but it's like, is that actually, like, he's definitely not the most powerful person of that region. So I don't even know if we're going in that direction, but if we do meet,
Yeah, like, who is the one who's deciding what's needing to conform and what's not normal?
Right.
Yeah, like, sure. Is it just some kind of broadly societally accepted line of what's good and what's not, or is somebody deciding that? And I also wanted to, like, just add, like, I thought it's just such a strong theme throughout the episode, and it's balanced out really well with all of the sort of the lightheartedness, but it's such a strong theme, like, straight from the beginning, where we have Luce at school and needing to conform to the expectations of her there, and then needing to be sent away to this camp where she has to learn to be boring and not engage in thinking creatively, through to this now Boiling Isles where they have these conservatoriums. And I think it speaks to just how widespread these institutions are that decide what's normal, what's not, and try to fit people into boxes that they don't want to fit in. So yeah, I thought it was just, like, as I said at the beginning, like, it was really powerful how they depicted that, but also in such a, like, like, not in a way that's like, whoa, it's like you're, like, turned off by how, like, intense it is. It's like, oh, like, I can connect with it.
Yeah.
Like, I think just a little, just going off a little bit of what Sarah said, it's not necessarily related to the, like, the institution part, but you were talking about, you know, the balanced by the lightheartedness. Mm-hmm. And something Star struggled with for a long time was balancing its zaniness. Mm-hmm. And I think something that's another great thing that the show does is it does a really great job of balancing the light and the dark, because it knows what it wants its zaniness to be. Like, dramatically cuts off her head and you're like, oh my god, but then she's fine, but you're also like, oh my god. And then, like, you know, there's a lot of those funny but very serious, like, and I think that's another great thing about, like, this is lighthearted, but we are dealing with serious topics, and I think they do a really great job of, they let their, like, the moments in this episode that they let them hit, and they give them a moment, they let them rest, and then, like, you know, they'll crack a joke, but it's not to the expense of what they're trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. I think you guys are making a lot of comparisons with Star. For me, another show that kind of, I don't think it nailed it off the bat, but Adventure Time kind of was what this show, at times there were little things, like, for instance, the door of the actual owl house. I was like, that's a very Adventure Time type of humor. So I was like, another instance of, like, okay, how do you capture this very weird tone, or of, like, this is some of these things are very heavy topics, but then they still manage to make it lighthearted.
Right.
So
see, I'm turned off by that show because I've seen, like, the very early episodes, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this.
Right,
so,
and it took them a while to get to those things. Yeah, so the fact that the show was able to get it right off the bat, I think, was just, that just shows the impressiveness and just how the word I'm looking, I guess I'm going to use is tight. The episode is how tight
Yes,
it is.
it's very tight.
It's the decisions that were made. This is like a very well written and well drafted script for this.
Like, this
episode.
is like very constructed, and I think that's really like, pilots, they, like we were talking about earlier, like they like to play around. They don't necessarily commit all the way because they don't know if they're going to get picked up or not. But that's really, I think the strength is like this episode goes all out. Like it completely like just, it doesn't spend too much time doing exposition. It doesn't do too much time just being nonsense. Like it really, like it knows what it's about. And it's like what you were saying, it's very tight. Like this is an extremely solid pilot.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that covers it with the first impressions. What are your hopes, just to kind of close out the podcast, what are your hopes to see for this show moving forward? Like, what do you, like, envision this show being? Like, what do you hope, like, for instance, like, do you want to continue on this kind of emphasis of, like, embracing who you are? Do you want them to go more like, all right, we've covered this, now let's move on to something else? Or just anything? Like, what do you expect or what do you hope to see moving forward?
I guess go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, I was just about going this whole, like, I don't know, like, I mean, we'll see. Like, I don't necessarily want to hit on, like, the weirdness every single episode, but I kind of, like, because this episode was so well constructed, like, normally I wouldn't say this about literally any show, but, if we're just going to have kind of zany adventures while she learns magic, they've kind of sold me on this is going to be entertaining, and I think we're really going to learn some stuff, and I think they're not afraid to, I think, go there with certain topics. And I'm not sure what all they're going to explore. Again, this is just a taste of what we're getting, but I really I'm kind of sold just on the basic premise of like learning magic from this old lady I met. Like I think they've done a really good job of crafting this universe and setting our characters up. Yeah.
What about you, April?
I'm really just hoping that we continue and grow like this message of like being yourself, like just because again, like it's so empowering to have, a main character or two main characters at that who are just themselves. And so I think there's a lot of potential with this show. Like we can do so many things, and well, I'm sure we'll have some type of character development, and I'm curious to see what is in store for that for our characters, especially for Luce. But it's gonna be fun. Like at the same time, like it's gonna be serious. Like I no joke when as I was like sitting there listening to like Luce go on about like how she's herself and that's normal for her. She doesn't think she's quote unquote weird, and like I was like tearing up just because like it's such a good message. Like, and I can't say no to like a really good message, especially like again for a show that has a younger audience. Like I'm 30 years old and I still like don't know who I am.
Right.
So
well, it's taken me like 23 years and like a lot of therapy to be like okay with the stuff I like. Like like this is incredible. Like this is like very important stuff to see at a young age, and they're doing it very genuinely.
Yeah, and for them to encourage it at the same time. Like it's just great. Like, and again, like this like first episode, like pilot episode, is incredible for it to be so amazing. So like there's a lot of like really good potential here, and it's gonna be good. Like I just feel it's gonna be good. So I'm ready.
What about you, Sarah? Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just all I'm hoping for is the continued balance of like lightheartedness and touching on those like really earnest, genuine, real feelings that can really tug at your heartstrings. And yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, same here. Good news, the show's already been renewed for season 2.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So what that tells me is that they're really confident with what the Disney Channel's very confident with what they've seen so far. And I just can't wait. I also love, I when I was looking at the wiki for the cast, they also had the episode titles for the rest of the season. and they're all puns on movies. So this one obviously is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh,
is basically
God.
what this one is. They're all great. There's one in particular that I like. Oh, I can't wait for everyone to like learn. I'm not gonna say it because I don't want like spoiler. Some people might.
I already
see it as a
did
spoiler.
this with Rick and Morty. I don't
No,
want
but it's great.
to.
No, but it's great. It's like it's a fun, humorous thing. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be great. I love it. So I'm thrilled with the show. I can't wait to get to know Luce and Ida more, and King, of course. So but yeah, that does it for this podcast. You can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks for all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Hugh, aka Hugh Neutron. And thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatriz, Hugh, Michael, and Needle. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.